at various levels of the organization. Much of what we discuss is focused on strengthening our chapters. And it's certainly open to anyone who is an officer, all of our executive board leaders, as well as anyone within our membership who'd like to learn more about RPEC and perhaps would be considering leading at a chapter or at a district or council level in the future. So we kind of have a wide cross-section of folks who join us. So I'm glad you asked that question. That's a good kickoff. It's 1 o'clock. So I want to welcome all of you to our monthly leadership call. We are very excited that today's leadership call will be led by Jacob Knupp. Jacob was hired just over a month ago as our new membership coordinator. And I want to thank those of you, including Johanna and others, who have made him feel so welcome and have invited him out to speak to chapters. Today, he's going to be leading our session with a very strong focus on recruiting new members and making them feel welcome. And so I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to ask you if you can please put yourselves on mute. And then we'll be working with Jacob today. If you have comments or questions as our time together proceeds, then we'll certainly call on you so you can add your comments and your ideas. This is a wonderful time for you to share your expertise with each other. And so please know that we encourage that. But just so that we don't have a lot of background noise, it's always helpful if we can mute. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jacob. I know many of you had the pleasure of meeting him at convention, but he will be leading our training today. So Jacob.
Thank you for the introduction, Lori, and thank you to everyone who could make it today. Your attendance is duly noted, and I really appreciate any contributions that you make to membership. So without any further delay, I'm going to share the PowerPoint. All right, can everybody see that? Let's see, might have to do it like this, actually. There we go. Okay. So what we'll start with first is we'll go to the August recap covering what Emmett last covered in the monthly leadership call a couple months ago. So some of the topics that were talked about previously were new member action plans. For any of you who remember that, that involves what's the process that we follow up with after we recruit a new member. You know, what kind of correspondence do we do to make contact with that member to try to further engage them after they become a member? That includes personal outreach from the chapter, phone calls, even handwritten notes can go a long way sometimes, making things personal. And I know not all of us have good handwriting or have the time for handwritten notes, but you know, it's always a good thought. How can we make new members feel welcome at chapter meetings? I think it's important that you introduce them to everybody present at the meeting and that you give them the opportunity to be situated in the middle of the action. So putting them front and center next to, you know, maybe some of the officers where they have some opportunities to see how things work. And invite them to participate, empower them a little bit, give them a chance to do something small so they can feel like they contribute without overwhelming them. And always follow up with some sort of thank you. You know, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you making it to this meeting, and we'd love to have you at another one. Those are just some of the points that Emmett covered at the last monthly leadership call. Does anybody have anything to say about any of those topics? No? All right. So moving on to what are our goals for October? So some of the goals that I think are going to be my main focus, and hopefully me and the membership committee can kind of find some common ground on how to approach these topics. First being, how can we improve member-to-member recruitment? Second, how can we expand outreach to increase member involvement and awareness? How can we make meetings more interesting and engaging to improve attendance? And then what kind of processes can we develop for following up with new members? Okay, and after that, so we'll go into recruitment and retention. Now, I don't know, did Colleen make it today? I don't see Colleen. So Colleen was going to speak a little bit on this, but I can go ahead and do that if she is not here. Yeah, I don't see her in here. Okay. So yeah.
We can ask, I'll ask Alyssa if she can reach out to Colleen.
Okay.
And see if she's just running a little bit late.
Okay, yeah, I can actually move on to the next slide because Colleen was going to talk a little bit about recruitment and retention, and so was I. So I'll just go on to my piece for now, and we can always come back. It's all going to be relevant to each other. Perfect. Okay. So I'd like to touch base on the Recruit 2 campaign. It's come to my attention that a very great portion of our members don't really know what this is, or maybe even haven't heard about it altogether. So the Recruit 2 campaign, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know, is if a member directly recruits 2 new members, they get a check for $84. So the price of a year's worth of dues. And currently, there is no cap on how many times you can do that in a year. So realistically, if you really, really, really work hard to recruit new members, you could be having your dues paid for pretty much for who knows how long. That's up to you. So anyway, I think it's important that our members know about this. This is supposed to be our biggest membership recruitment tool. This is supposed to be the big incentive for why our members work hard to get new people in the door. So for the officers, for the presidents, I think we need to start coordinating on how we can communicate these membership tools to our members, because they're just as valuable for recruitment as you are as officers and as we are here as staff. Judy?
Hi, has there been a pretty in color flyer about this? If there has, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that's something that we need to talk about is how do we want to market what sort of things we offer for our members, right? And there's a lot to talk about in regards to that, actually. So at this time, I don't know of any specific flyers or anything that we had to communicate the Recruit 2 campaign. But I think it's important that we put in more effort to do so. Because if everybody knew about it, I can imagine there would be a lot greater member-to-member recruitment numbers. Just to give an example, I was looking at some reports of our member-to-member recruitment in the last 20 years. Back in 2002, there was roughly 173 members recruited that year by other members. In 2019, only 18 members were recruited by members. That's, over 17 years, that's a pretty big drop. And that's before COVID hit. So that doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic or anything like that. It just goes to show that it's kind of fallen by the wayside. And I think that me starting and trying to take a fresh perspective on this is a new opportunity to try to work with you guys on revamping some of this and getting the information out there.
Jacob?
Go ahead, Sandy.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Sandy.
One of the things I was thinking about was doing a nice half-page notice in the newsletters about the Recruit 2 campaign that's consistent across the state for all chapters. And then also to make sure that those who actually succeed in receiving the $84 award, that we mention them or show their certificate in the newsletter as well. I think that when you're talking about empowerment and recognition and that sort of thing, that's one of the thoughts I had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great idea. Recognition is extremely important. We want to acknowledge our members for the hard work that they do and not just reward them. We got to commend them as well. So I completely agree with you, Sandy. Thank you for that point. Anybody else before? Oh, go ahead, Lori.
Just a little tidbit. We did acknowledge the top recruiters and
Right.
also recognize the top chapters at convention. And we've kind of hit a lull in this campaign, and that's one of the reasons why Jacob is placing focus on this. We were able to highlight some of those who had been successful in recruitment efforts leading up to this fall. So we had some initial strong interest, and that's kind of waned. And that's why we wanted to make this a focus today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lori, for that. All right. Anybody else before I move on to the next topic? No? Okay. So next on the list is how can we as members, whether that be officers or non-officers, how can we convey the uniqueness of RPEC to potential members? For starters, one of the biggest key benefits that we have in RPEC is that we have members that hold positions on very important committees and boards that we have a lot of affiliation with and support some of the same priorities that we do. You know, things like PEB, for example, SHIBA, those are the types of committees and boards I'm talking about. That is something that makes us very unique compared to other organizations like us. And I think that some of these other organizations maybe are even more well-known, and people might think that that's more piquing their interest if we're connected to an organization that they're familiar with. So I think it's important to communicate that to people that we do have those connections. The other main thing that I've noticed that members aren't very aware of is the benefits that they get through AFSCME Advantage when they're a member of RPEC. I've already had multiple people call me confused about the whole process of their benefits, how they access them, if they have to pay for them. Some people think that they have to pay for them. It's just I think it's very confusing to some that don't have the ability to really dig for the information. So I think developing some sort of protocol or process when getting in new members, how can we support them in being familiarized with what they do have access to? Because I think that information is knowledge. Knowledge is power. We want to empower our members. Go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good quarterly news article to me.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Claude.
Jacob, one of the things that I had advocated previously, and I am working on now, I'm working with several presidents of WPSI within the King County District. For example, 843, 3488, 1488, 304, and 341. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with the president of 341 this coming Wednesday. And I will be able to go and attend their meeting so that I can at least put this information out. I have pamphlets and I have a lot of other RPEC information that I will be providing for these folks. He had indicated to me that there's several members of his chapter 341 local, 341, that have retired and they are going to pay their dues for 1 year. Plus there are other members that will be retiring within that local. So I am going to try to tap into that and see how many members I can get when I talk to them at their next local meeting. I will also get in touch with the other presidents within the King County area and discuss RPEC and the retirement members that will be retiring in the very near future. So that's one way I am going to try to recruit as many members into RPEC from these different WPSI locals. And if that is successful, then I can start working on Metro and the city.
No, that sounds great, Claude. I think that's extremely important, especially when we have the opportunity for other organizations to gift people memberships to RPEC. That's huge. We don't get a lot of those, but I think that's something that we need to focus on. Lori and I have talked about that quite a bit as well, reaching out to presidents of locals to try to work with them on membership without violating anything by directly promoting RPEC. So go ahead, Judy. Oh, you're muted.
There. Another idea might be to have our executive board representative do a talk on those benefits when they visit their chapters.
Absolutely.
Hand out the pamphlets and, you know, be more upbeat than just something in the mail.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's kind of probably more so to the tone that I was thinking as well, something a little more engaging, because a lot of people, a piece of paper, they might not even have read what the title of it was, and they threw it in the garbage. So we got to try to make sure we can communicate as best possible. Go ahead, Lori.
So this is just a mention, and it kind of builds off of what Claude was sharing. It's so wonderful to hear that Claude and others are getting out and reconnecting with locals and speaking to them about the value of RPEC and having them continuing their membership through us. I just want to mention that back in, I want to say it was maybe August, it could have been early September, Candy and I had opportunity to speak to Kurt Spiegel, who is the executive director of WFC, about this very topic. And, you know, our intention was to try to see if WFC would do this really, you know, across the board for all of their locals. But WFC is very much in a rebuilding capacity at this time. So I just want to share that with you, that, you know, what we are hearing Claude do about reaching out and encouraging this gifting and this continuity, we have to do that on a local by local basis. And we will do that in our outreach. So I just wanted to add that to what has already been offered today.
Thank you, Lori, for that. I appreciate you commenting. Judy, did you have something else to say, or is that just a stuck hand?
Well, I forgot to take my hand down, but I did think of something else, you know.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
You know, many or most of us spend a fair amount of time on Facebook. And I have a lot of people that I worked with that I'm friends with on Facebook. Many of them were union members with me, but I don't know that they are RPEC members, and I don't live in the same town, so I wouldn't know. So right. That's something I can do to reach out to those friends that I worked with to ask about their membership and to encourage them to join. But maybe that's just a hint that we could give other people as well.
Absolutely, Judy.
I'll take my hand down now.
All right, thank you, Judy. Yeah, actually, you're ahead of the game with your comment about Facebook, because I actually that was going to be one of my topics. How can we utilize you know, other mediums besides just email and phone calls and newsletters? How else can we reach members or organize our chapters? And I think Facebook can be a very useful tool, just even for member to member reaching out to potential members, people that you used to work with, or people that you're wondering, are you a member? Otherwise, you'd be a perfect fit, you know, that kind of thing. I think that there's also potential benefit in chapter Facebook pages, depending on the chapter's dynamics. Each one's different, but I've heard of some chapters having success with that.
So
Judy,
another idea was that when, and I don't see very many, but when RPEC does a Facebook post, that if we were encouraged to remember to forward those to our friends, and that's real easy, you know. So, but sometimes you just need to remind people.
Absolutely. You know, I I don't know what everyone would say on this, but there might be a way that we can try to communicate that information whenever we make those kinds of posts. Go ahead, Lori.
So for all of you to know, Jacob and Derek and I have had some conversations about how we can better utilize our social media. And one of the things we may want to think about is perhaps even doing something with Facebook Live. So I don't know if that's a feature that any of you have used, but it's a way where our members who are active in Facebook can drop in, and we can interact with them differently through that platform. So we may want to start hosting Facebook Lives, not only on the value of membership, but maybe it would also be a vehicle for providing another type of update on our legislative affairs activities, which tend to be a key motivator in people not only joining the organization, but staying with us.
Thank you for that, Lori. Absolutely. Does anybody else have any other comments about that before I move on to talking about how we can engage new members? Go ahead.
Well, it occurs to me, I hadn't thought I'd heard of Facebook Live, but I did have a friend who did a pop-up shop on Facebook where she sold jewelry. And that was such a fun thing to participate in, because she'd send out a notice when she was going to be on, and then I could click on to that. And it was fun, interactive situation. So yeah, I think that would be great if,
Okay.
Even just mini trainings or mini information sharing, something, it'd be neat.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great idea. I haven't personally used Facebook Live very much for myself, so I'll definitely have to look into that. That sounds like it could be very useful for what we're trying to do. So thank you for that, Judy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to engaging new members. How can we engage new members? What can we think of that would get people to come in the door for the first time to participate in a meeting? I know in some situations, some officers actually invite potential members to a meeting before they've actually signed up, just to give them the opportunity to see what it's all about. And I'm sure that that's where we usually find the ones that are actually interested at that point. Go ahead, Katrina.
I think posting on Facebook about our legislative affairs, the things that we hope to accomplish in speaking to our legislators, is a really good way to engage new members. They've probably never spoken to a legislator or written a letter, and encouraging them to do that, and maybe having a small webinar on how you go about approaching or giving testimony, which we've done in the past. I think that would be another good way to help engage new members.
Go ahead, Lori. Thank you for that, Katrina.
That is an excellent suggestion. And one of the things we hope to really strengthen is the kind of the cross-pollination of what we have and the tools that we've been able to create. And so I think that that is definitely something that we can look to. Since you brought up the issue of social media and legislators, this is something that Jacob and Emmett and I have talked about, and it's something I hope that we can really lean into as the legislative session begins. Legislators do pay attention, and we hope to follow them on Twitter, and we will use social media even more so as part of our strategy. So there's always room to grow. And the good news is now that we have a more complete professional team in the office, we can provide more support with content development. So thank you for these great ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a main part of my focus now that I've kind of got my boots wet and starting to get the hang of things around here. So so Robin and then Judy. Go ahead, Robin.
Thank you, Jacob. So maybe this has been mentioned earlier, but thanks to you folks sending us a list of new members, what we endeavor to do is to contact the new members and invite them to the very next chapter meeting and tell them we will be happy to buy their lunch. And we will be doing just that again over the weekend, because our next meeting is Tuesday. So that perhaps will work. We will find out soon enough.
Absolutely, Robin. Thank you. I think that's super important, is even just a one-time token of being able to offer a meal to get somebody to come in to be exposed to what it is that we do in a chapter meeting. Go ahead, Judy.
I have to admit that it hasn't been in the front of my brain to think about new member opportunities or recruiting opportunities. We just had our meeting Tuesday, and we're skipping November and December official meetings and instead having a holiday meeting. And we are buying lunch for all of our members, and we're having a very dynamic guest speaker. And it didn't even occur to me or anybody else to say, bring a potential member with you. You know, and it's just because it's not in the front of my brain to look for those opportunities. It's not just a one-time thing. So I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, Judy. Yeah, I think that is a good point. Is as far as members go, they kind of already have a certain position about what their role is in their chapter, what their role is as an RPEC member. And maybe we do need to stop and think a little more often about, well, how are we doing member wise? Do we have a growing chapter? Are we getting new members? Do we have fresh ideas coming in the door? I think that that's extremely important. Go ahead, Diana.
Well, I'm chapter 2 membership coordinator, I guess. And I've been giving a lot of thought to this, and I'm going to start. I talked to Tim a little bit about it, the president of chapter 2, and I'm thinking I'm going to start a little, and it's not a campaign, but it'll be a request, send a request out and ask people to write a short testimony about RPEC is not a mandatory thing, it's a voluntary thing. So everybody here has a reason for joining. And so I'd like to invite them to write a brief statement about what their reason is, and thinking that one, words have power. And so you put that in front of people, maybe a testimony or something said in each newsletter, and help give words. I like those that they call them elevator talks. You know, when you can explain why you want to be in a group, or why you do something, why something is important to you in 60 seconds or less. And I was thinking of it would help other people perhaps get some words to use when they have an opportunity to say something.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diana. I remember you and I talked briefly on the phone about this stuff yesterday, and you mentioned something along the lines of, you know, it is voluntary. So we want to convince these people that this is going to be a good use of their time. This is going to be something important that they want to be a part of. And so I think something like an elevator, like a hook like that, can be very useful to attract members. Go ahead, Johanna.
Well, this isn't exactly on target, but it's something that has been on my mind for a long time, both at the chapter level and at the council, particularly at the council level. I wish we would use charts that show improvement or loss, whatever it is, as opposed to a page full of numbers that are quite boring. And, you know, something like the Easter seals people do with the thermometer with
with the chart showing that you're actually increasing your membership. And I think it would be fun to do at the chapter level as well, to have some kind of a pictorial record of how well or poorly we're doing.
Yeah, that's great, Johanna. Actually, what I will do is I will talk some more with the professional team and see if that's something that we could support or provide is a way to make some sort of visual out of the add drop changes roster. I think that there's a lot of value in that. Absolutely. All right. Whoever's next, end user, I'm not sure who it is, but go ahead.
This is Colleen. Sorry to be so
Oh,
late.
Colleen, hello, welcome.
Besides not being able to get in, we also had a complete computer crash, so we're back.
Oh, perfect.
Now, I think we need to show both for prospects and for new members that we will change with the times depending upon their wishes and needs. And an example of that, as I've been told by multiple people, both prospects and new members, that there needs to be an agenda item in the planning for each meeting if possible. In other words, what they said was, if there is nothing stated that shows or demonstrates that you're actually trying to accomplish something in your meeting, then we're not interested in coming. So bear that in mind. And the agenda item being worked on would be totally different from the guest speaker. Also for new members, I didn't mention this when I sent in information, but when I welcome new members to the organization, I ask some questions. The first is, since in the past, some labor unions have agreed to pay a year's dues in our organization for the retiring members. When you're getting ready to retire, by any chance, were you a union member? And if so, which local? So that if they start paying again, I can determine if you're in line for that benefit. Secondly, how'd you first find out about RPEC? Third, what was your main motivation to join? Then if they show, you can go into regular conversation from there. And if they show some interest in a particular area, then that opens up asking them about their interest in taking part in specific tasks. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, Colleen. And actually, after these next couple of questions, Colleen, if you wouldn't mind, I've got this slide pulled up now that touches on some points that you and I discussed over email a few days ago, and I didn't know if to go a little deeper. So let me get Alma-Jean and Johanna real quick, and then we'll come back to you, okay?
Okay.
All right, Alma-Jean.
Thank you. Coming from a background as being a statistician, I am interested in data. The data helps me understand the potential overall for RPEC. What is our potential when we look at the companies represented by retirees? What skills do they bring? What is the age bracket? What is their lifestyle? Are they in nursing homes? Are they living alone? Are they assisted? These things help us with recruitment so that you can hopefully develop some type of means of making a meaningful contact and not generate a lot of, I would call, time that's just not productive. If I know that there's a retiree coming in that has a certain skill area, like some of the hardest areas to fill in our chapters are those called secretaries and treasurers. Those are people that have significant interest in that and those lines of work. And quite frankly, that's what they're interested in doing. I was recruited based on interest in what the chapter had to provide. And so I am interested in those statistics just to get an idea of who the membership is, what it is, where it is, what its needs are. And I know that a number of our retirees are enjoying the Zoom experience, the opportunity to be at home, Many of them asked for this opportunity before the pandemic, and now that we're doing it, we're gonna maybe have to look at a hybrid situation where we can accommodate them. Quite frankly, it's wonderful to walk around this house with my phone on speaker and vacuum the floor, clean a room, and still hear and contribute without having to drive through traffic in an unsafe environment where there's smoke and stuff to worry about. We need to think about what it is that our members, and to know that, you got to know who they are. The membership committee was in the throes of putting together a survey to try
Yes,
to
indeed.
some information. And as we're into this transition now of appointing the new committees, we don't want that work to fall. We want to pick it up and move it forward. So again, we can say that we accomplished something. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alma Jean. Yeah, that's actually something I'm going to talk about a little more too further into this presentation, but you made some good points. We need to know the demographics of our target audience for who we're trying to recruit. We've got to be able to narrow it down for what it is that we're directly looking for. So yeah, that was a great point, Alma Jean. I really appreciate you mentioning that. And then as far as, you know, when it comes to that survey, that's actually something I've been going through this week, and that is supposed to be going out in February. So I'm going to be working with the professional team on making sure that that's going to be a very effective survey that's going to get us information that we can utilize to grow membership. Robin, go ahead. I'll make it a little brief just because Colleen's got to be able to speak her piece with the time we have.
Yeah, I really like what Alma Jean just said, because it'll give us an opportunity, those of us who are into visiting folks in nursing homes. You know, I have a nursing home group that we play music for them, also do Meals on Wheels and food bank deliveries. We could perhaps reach out to them that way, because we're there to also look after our members. And I would be happy to know if there are folks like that, retirees, RPEC members that we could visit. So thank you, Alma Jean.
Thank you for that comment, Robin. Absolutely. We are a community, and we want to make sure our members are all doing well. All right, Colleen, if you would like to speak a little bit more about recruitment and retention, I think we could give you a solid 10 minutes before we'd have to try to move on to the next subject. So yeah, speak as much as you will.
Okay, going back on something that Alma Jean said, I found out very recently that one of our really new members who retired from the State Department of Health, who told me at our September meeting that they basically do nothing but surveys. I would think, and I was not aware of that, I would think that this man might be really well utilized to look over whatever finished product that the subcommittee has on the survey they want to send out, because he may have some really valuable information to add. Also on recruitment and retention. As far as working on retention, I think it's really important to try to get people to volunteer their time. Anytime to do all sorts of tasks. Anytime that a person does a task, then they are locked into the organization, I guess you'd have to say. It keeps them in as members because they've done something that is significant to, for instance, the membership recruiting effort. To give you an example, once a year, I send out a one-page request looking for volunteers to take telephone trio lists for the legislative session, for the also for the Congress and calls into US senators. I mention that as part of my request because legislative messaging goes hand in hand, I think, with membership. When you're talking to prospects, when you're talking to new members, one of the main questions is, what have they done? What have you guys done for me lately? And that leads right back to what we work on in the legislature. Okay, the other tasks that I ask about also is it's actually regarding our membership recruitment. It's to make recruitment calls over the phone at home, to look up people's telephone numbers on those lists, any lists we get where the number is not provided, look that up on the internet, as well as members' dates of birth so that we can catch people when they turn 100 that we don't know about, so they can become centennial members without continuing to pay dues, as one of our members had. By the time I found her, she was 104. Other tasks would be making meeting reminder calls, making a postcard, non-member postcard invite calls, follow up to see if they're coming, making presentations before unions or professional groups. Oh, there might be one or two more. I'd have to do some checking on that. At any rate, approximately, I would estimate over the years, about 360 of our members have participated. Some repeat, others just here and there. People do move out of poor and good health, so that there's always that line is, please do not contact me because of health prevents my participation. So year to year to year, you find out who can and cannot be of assistance. Now, what we will be ending up doing, because so many fewer volunteers have been available during COVID than before, that we will be filling in with robocalls. I personally have a problem with respect to robocalls because person-to-person contact is invaluable. To give you an example of that, one of our members for the October meeting happened to talk to a 90-year-old member, and she found out that our member and the 90-year-old's mother worked with our caller in the 1970s. That was huge. So they had a lot to talk about. Another thing to remember is that, and this comes from people saying over and over and over again, I can't recruit anybody because I've been retired for so long that I don't know anybody anymore. I don't have any contacts. Well, one of our rather new members, when I asked her what motivated her to join, a member of another chapter and she were last co-workers in 1990. I missed it by 1 year, and she corrected me. And our member quit her job. She was vested and started a business of her own. More recently, this member of another chapter said, RPEC is the organization to belong to. So she said, I joined because I was told you're the right place. And she started coming to meetings, and she's going to be doing research on her own about everything we've done. So she's been going through the website since our October meeting. And that makes a huge difference with respect also to people becoming more active in the organization. When we are recruiting, I think that it's really important to use what we most recently worked on. That being our attendance at the PEB board meeting. I had a brand new member say to me, you know that PEB meeting that you've been talking about? I have that insurance. And I was led to believe I would have it for life. And so I think that we could use it in a recruiting effort for the people that have the uniform plan to come together with us and participate when we have to go back and fight them again in 2024. Those who have different programs for their medical coverage, we can use an overview, not the whole details, but the overview of that story to demonstrate the value of
Oh, wow,
coming
it's really
together
loud.
in
Ooh.
numbers.
Siri, close it, shut down or something.
What? Oh, okay. Is there anything else you want me to cover at this point?
I don't think so, Colleen. You did a really great job of getting into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to commit your time to being a part of recruitment and what it takes to really engage with new members and to get them interested. So yeah, I really appreciate you speaking on that. And does anybody have any comments or questions about anything Colleen talked about? Lori?
Just, I want to build on what not only Colleen said, but someone referenced this earlier, and it's important to go back to it. So she talked about one of the ways to encourage engagement and retention is by giving our members things to do. And that's wonderful. And I want to say that as you think about that, think about a scale of involvement. So what is a low threshold? And then, don't ask them for the moon, like ask them for something really simple and easy. So I'm going to pick on Robin for a minute. I had a chance to go out to Robin's chapter and we met at that meeting. You might remember Robin. I don't remember the member's name, but she was really vivacious, very enthusiastic. And Robin and I were chatting. She came up to us and said, I'm brand new, but I want to get involved. And so in that short conversation, Robin was able to say, would you like to be a greeter at our meetings? I mean, that's easy, right? That's a low threshold. And she was like, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. So it's the same idea that you look for lower levels of investment and get them more hooked and feeling good about being part of RPEC. And then you grow them to the next level where eventually they might help with a phone tree or something else. So I just think that point is, it's important enough to reemphasize and to provide another example. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, everyone needs to feel important, wanted, and useful. We all desire that. And I think that's how we can make new members have that experience right away. Go ahead, Judy.
Thanks. I was kind of thinking on the same wavelength, only otherwise until you spoke, Lori. I've talked to so many people who don't mind being a member, but they don't want to be active. They just want to pay their dues and get the mailers and know what's going on. So we need to be aware of that. There are those people. But I'm recalling in the days when I was shy, I know that's a shock for some of you, but I was, and just becoming interested in the union. And one of the reps called me at work and asked me if I could mail her a copy of my office phone list. And I still remember my response was, can I do that? People are surprised. Can I do that? And her response was, of course you can. Well, that was a small thing for me to do that made me feel like I was doing something for my union. And the idea of a greeter, I've got a gal that comes to every meeting, and she sometimes will speak up during the meeting. She visits with people at the table very freely, but she never would volunteer to do anything, even, a few phone calls. And finally, one day she told me that she was dyslexic, so she couldn't write and she had trouble reading, a script or whatever. So please not to ask her to do anything like that. It never occurred to me to ask her to be a greeter for somebody new who might come to the meeting. That's an ideal idea for her to do. She's very social. She just doesn't volunteer. So thanks, Lori.
It might be useful. I'm glad that tidbit, I'm just passing on something I observed when I was out at Robin's chapter. But what I want to say is this might be something that we may want to throw Jacob on another agenda, is to try to brainstorm what are the various ways that folks can be involved Recognizing what you said, Judy, not everybody wants to be involved, but for those who want that sense of connection by participating in the chapter in some way, what are all the ways that they can do it? And just have it like on a scale like this. This takes, you don't have to necessarily quantify it, but you could say if you participate in the phone tree, that could be perhaps an hour a month or something like that, because people always want to know how much time are you asking of me, right? So that's something we could easily do. You can also share those ideas directly with Jacob, and he can compile an initial list that we can share back out. But I think this has been a really great brainstorm to be thinking about not only how we actively recruit, but also how we actively retain.
Yeah, that's great, you guys. Thank you, Judy and Lori, for your points on that. I think that kind of ties into what Alma-Jean was talking about as well with, what access do our members have to the information, to participation, to contribution? What sort of access do they have? We got to consider how we can get people more involved, even on that level where we just give people some small tasks that gives them a sense of accomplishment, a sense of community with the members of their chapter. Okay, so if anybody doesn't have any more comments on that piece right now, I did want to just make one more brief mention in regards to engaging new members. Something to consider is when approaching convention and legislative day, we should start considering looking at our new members and trying to get them to participate in our big ticket events that we have, like convention and ledge day. Because someone mentioned, legislative priorities and membership go hand in hand. We should be communicating that information to try to get people interested in being members. I think convention and ledge day would be the perfect place for them to not just hear it from us, but to hear it from other political professionals, other people that are like us, like this organization. So I think that's great. All right, so I'm going to move on to improving meeting attendance. So first we'll talk about what are some incentives to get people to participate to meetings, whether that be virtual or in person. So I've heard a lot of discussion about hybrid come up lately, and people have their own reasons for why they're skeptical about using the technology, or there are people that physically can't even make it to meetings, and maybe at one point they were a regular, but because of their health or transportation, whatever the reason may be, they can't participate on that same level anymore. We don't want to lose those people just because they physically can't make it to a meeting. If they are still wanting to contribute, then we want to give them the opportunity to contribute. So something to keep in mind is even if you're not offering virtual or hybrid meetings right now, maybe consider talking to your chapter and doing votes about what their opinions are on these topics, because I think you would find that participation will go up if you offer more avenues for people to participate. All right, so and then talking about what is adequate outreach and how can we adjust our communication to better reach our current members and new members, right? So yeah, hybrid meetings I think is a good way because it's all about access. Something else to consider is how overwhelmed the postal system is. So right now, mail isn't exactly traveling at the same speed that it has in the past. Alma-Jean had mentioned to me too that there are even some post offices that have limited their hours to 4 days a week instead of 5, things like that. It's hard to say moving forward into the future how that's going to be a constraint for our communications. And so we have to be diligent to the changes that are going on in the postal system so that we can adapt and figure out more efficient ways, more complete ways to reach all of our members with reports and information on legislative updates and RPEC updates. That communication is so important to our members, and for them to be able to stay keyed into what we're doing and be a part of that mission. Okay, so with that being said, we'll talk about what are some mediums for reaching members. We've got chapters that use all sorts of different methods. Some chapters use all the methods. So we're talking newsletters. We've got email blasts. We've got the robocalls. And then we also have kind of like what, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but the Facebook idea. That could be another medium that we use to communicate information to our members, whether that be generating a chapter Facebook page for individual chapters that it would work for. Like I said before, all chapters are going to be different. So what works for one may not work for another. But I think the point is to be receptive to the idea that maybe the way that we're doing things right now isn't the best and isn't the most efficient. And maybe we really could improve our process and could get more people in the door, get more participation, hold the interest of our members and make them want to keep coming back and participating. And hopefully some of them eventually turn into officers because they find the motivation to fight for the chapter and to fight for RPEC. So that's really what we're going for here. We want to find as many of those people as we can. And I do agree that there is different levels of participation. We've got members that, like someone already said, they just want to pay the dues. They want to get the information, and that's okay. We will give them the opportunity to do just that if that's what they want to do. But we also want to make it easier for people that want to do more to have the opportunity to do more. I think that's what's really important for engaging new members and even current members that have been around. We have, I'm sure, plenty of members that if they had more opportunities to contribute maybe on a smaller scale, their participation would maybe increase as well. Okay. So inviting potential and new members to chapter meetings or chapter socials. I know that I think, Judy, you talked about doing a social in December for your chapter where people are just going to kind of come together for that sense of community and to celebrate the holidays together. I think that's exceptional, and it shouldn't always be about business because there is that community aspect to it, and that's fellowship, that's togetherness. So I think that that can be a really important tool for maybe just even being an icebreaker for members that don't really know each other very well and have had very little conversation with one another at meetings. I think there's a lot of value in being able to be more vulnerable and less, business oriented and have the opportunity to share some personal things between yourself and other members. So I think social opportunities are great. And the final point I wanted to make about improving meeting attendance is that I think leadership participation is so important because the chapter leaders, the officers, they set the example for other members that are participating but aren't in an officer type position. The more that we can have presidents, vice presidents of chapters participating in the various types of meetings that we hold, like these monthly leadership calls. A lot of you showed up today and I'm so very appreciative of that because you guys have a lot of valuable information and I want to take what's already been done so far and try to elevate RPEC to the next level. So I really do appreciate your time. And I encourage you guys to continue to talk to your other officers and encourage them to participate in these monthly leadership calls as well. Other types of calls that are important are things like relating to like PEB or SHIBA or the Washington State Senior Lobby. I think if we can get more participation from leaders on these types of calls, you're going to be able to bring that information back to your chapter in your meetings. If you get your officers in there as well, a lot more information is going to be able to be gathered and be conveyed. Things won't be missed. And I think that's the important part, is that when we don't have any leaders from a chapter participate in some of these calls, maybe that information gets entirely missed by that chapter. And maybe the only correspondence that is sent out about it is an email or something to that effect. And that's just not as productive. It's not as communicative. It's not as effective. So I think, within reasonable means, we all still have our own lives to live. And I understand that you're volunteers, but the presidents can set a huge example for their members by participating as much as possible in these videos, in these video conferences. So once again, thank you guys for showing up today. I'm very happy with how many people we've had, and you all have had some great things to say, and it's giving me a lot to go off of moving forward. So just briefly, I wanted to showcase how successful this chapter 10 meeting was, and just kind of what were the pieces of that equation to make it a success. So for one, we had Representative Mari Levitt present at the meeting, who spoke for about 20 minutes or so. And all of the members at this meeting were very engaged, because we all know that Representative Levitt is a huge champion for RPEC and its members. So that was a huge blessing to have at the meeting. And we put this on the Facebook page that we had this opportunity to have Representative Levitt come speak to our members. And so that was absolutely great. Everyone was very happy that she was there. Another thing that got members interested in attending was they held a raffle. So one lucky person got a cash prize at the end of the meeting. Doesn't have to be a big prize. I know, like chapter 21, Robin, they do that as well. And I think that that's really huge. Just a little extra incentive to get people to show up. And really, if you can get people to at least show up, then they see what the interesting stuff is. They figure out what is bringing them there in the first place. Why did they even join, right? Another thing is lunch. I know some chapters do free lunch, or, you know, like a sponsored lunch where you pay just a copay instead of a whole lunch price, things like that. I think that's really great, because at the very least, members can come together and enjoy lunch together. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Go ahead, Tomas.
I've been pretty quiet in this meeting, and that's pretty uncommon for me. Because most everyone that knows I chat a lot. But I think the important thing that I was hearing out of this meeting, I really wanted to make sure I was listening to everyone. There's multiple ways that people reach out. There's multiple ways they make contact. And part of it is what I would almost call a cultural or ethnic way of doing it. When I hear Claude or Alma Jane, they have a style and approach that really, really helps to recruit. So they do a special style that works for their Seattle communities. Rico, I was hearing the same kind of thing, or excuse me, Robin, I was hearing the same piece come from him in a different approach from the Eastern Washington side of it. When I look to Eastern versus Western Washington, how you recruit, for example, ethnic minorities, whether it's Blacks, Native Americans, Latinos, how you recruit is going to be a different piece and a different approach than it is going to be as our general organization. When I was hearing our meeting today, everyone was talking about the organizational structure, how we would do things within our chapters, how we would reach out. That's normally not how you would reach out for Latinos, how you would reach out to grab Native Americans or Black persons to join in a membership. It's really a different approach. And I would really suggest having those persons explain how they go about recruitment, which is a different piece than how you would recruit just normally out of a chapter. There's a different style to that, and it's almost attached to their personalities, their approach, their ability to reach out to other persons in a like manner to them. So there's a really unique piece that goes with that. That hasn't come out in this discussion that we had today, but I believe it's going to have a good piece in the future recruitment of getting ethnic persons more involved within the chapter, whether it's in rural Washington, Eastern Washington, or rural Western Washington, or even within the inner city structure. Anyway, that was just my contribution with that. And I was just trying to listen through that and looking to see how I could find those pieces coming out. I hadn't quite heard those to a degree, but I wanted to make sure I brought those up. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tomas. Yeah, that's a very good point. That kind of comes back, I guess, to the audience or the demographics of people that we're interacting with or trying to recruit, trying to get to participate. So that's a very good point, and you know, that's something we need to consider as part of our focus during recruitment in the future as well. So thank you, Tomas. Go ahead, Judy.
You bet.
Thanks. I really appreciate what Tomas had to say, because I keep bringing up to every organization I've ever belonged to, this is a real white company here. How do we get a broader a movement, more people involved? And I don't know, I've tried, but I appreciate that very much, Tomas. I wanted to say that at this last meeting, I pointed out to our members, because over the last 2 years, our coffers have grown. We've got a lot more money than we ever used to have, because we haven't been going to things or spending it. So I pointed out to them that this dues money is there to spend on the membership, which is one reason we decided to buy lunch for everybody in December. But I was just thinking we could do more to perhaps interest our members who do attend, even to be more participatory. And that might be to take a group on a tour of Olympia and show them the Capitol and the legislature, and take them to our headquarters building and introduce them to people, to bring them up to an executive board meeting and introduce them to the people, or let them see that it's not scary. It's just another place to work. And it might interest a lot of people, and it's something then we could buy lunch while we're there and make it a real outing. So just an idea.
Thank you, Judy. No, I think that's really great. And, those are some more examples of how we can use chapter money to do other things just besides, paying for lunch. I think there's a lot of ways that we can bring some exposure to potential members, especially non-white members of other ethnicities and backgrounds. I think that's extremely important. And that's something I'm very receptive to, ideas, suggestions from people. It sounds like there are some concerns that people have had for quite a while, and we haven't been able to adequately address those concerns. So yeah, thank you, Tomas and Judy, for your input on that subject. Go ahead, Robert. Oh, Robert, you are muted.
Unmute.
There you go.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me speak. The leadership meetings we're having here on Zoom is very important. I see that we have Chapter 10's meeting, the last one there. It was a great meeting. I want to thank Emmett and you and everybody who put it together. It was it's the largest meeting we had all year. It was something that we've looked forward to. We really enjoy it. We did buy everybody's lunch. It was a little expensive. We'll talk about that next year in the financial budgeting. But some of the things that I've noticed is that our newsletter is getting out, but it's not really giving Chapter 10's a positive response back. We tried to do robocalls. That seemed to work at first. We'll be working better on that. There were a few members who attended from the robocalls. Facebook, I think, would be kind of a good idea, but I'm just afraid when you're in Facebook jail, if staff will come and bail you out, or if you have to do extra time in jail. But in recruiting members, I do go out and touch bases with the locals, and I did get a couple of names. We had a picnic in September, and a couple of members association came in and signed up. So there are activities that can be done that we enjoy. On some of the ones in the new membership list don't have an email, don't have a phone number, but they have an address, and they're fairly close to where we are. And I have thought about driving out there, or maybe, like you said, they're sending a postcard to them. I think that'd be a great idea. Sometimes when you have meetings in a restaurant, that you have to abide by those rules. In some of the past meetings that I've read in the minutes, is that our chapter used to go to the members' home. they would plan ahead and say, okay, maybe in July, we'll go over to her house and have a potluck type deal, maybe for a smaller group of maybe 15 people. I don't know. Some people's groups are 25, but these meetings are very important. I really enjoy listening to the members, getting a couple ideas, and trying to move our retention and recruitment in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robert, for speaking. All right, Katrina, and then Lori.
Thank you, Jacob. One of the stumbling blocks I have come across in trying to recruit people.
Katrina, you're a little quiet. Are you able to scoot a little closer to your computer there?
If I put my speaker down, you could probably hear better.
There you go. Yep.
Sorry.
You're okay.
I've run into a stumbling block sometimes when I've spoken to a person who's a member of a particular minority group and they say, well, why would I come? I'll be the only fill in the blank person there. I'll be the only Black person. I'll be the only gay person. I'll be the only LGBT person. Why would I come to a group where I'm the only one? And I say, well, if you came, you would start and you could recruit other friends to come. And that goes over like a lead balloon. So I offer that as a place to stimulate ideas for communication and how we go about recruiting people, because I wasn't very successful in carrying that through. And I feel sort of bad about not figuring it out better. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think offering some ideas about how we can approach that subject is extremely important. So I appreciate that. Go ahead, Lori.
I just wanted to share something that Robin had put in a message to me, and he had to leave early. So what I wanted to just say, and this front part it relates to what Robin wanted to share. As we talk about strategies for engagement, it's individualized. I mean, there are some chapters that we have who have not had success with robocalls. You tried it, didn't work. Maybe that was a few years ago. You may want to try it again. We had that happen recently where Jacob was working with a chapter and they initially were like, yeah, that doesn't really work for us. And then they said, well, we're going to give this a try. And they had some good luck. So even if you've tried a strategy in the past, be open to trying something again. One of the things that Robin shared with me is that they were able to work with the company that we contract with for robocalls. And they were able to distinguish which individuals are using landlines and which ones are using cell. And they're really trying to target. And there's a way that you can send text messages instead of calls. So as long as you have permission to do so. So even within that tool, there's flexibility for you to acknowledge preference for communication and outreach. So I just thought I'd share that. And we can always invite back at a later time the gentleman that we contract with for robocalls, and we can bring him again as a speaker to our leadership call. We did have him come in July. So anyway, let Jacob know if there's interest in that, then that he can always make that arrangement. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, Jack English from Wizard Phone. He's a great resource. And before I let Alma Jean speak real quick, just a couple comments about the robocalls. One of the huge benefits that I learned in this past week about doing robocalls is that whenever a call is unable to successfully connect because a number is disconnected, it actually will tell you that on a report that gets sent back to you. I had a couple chapters send me their reports, and I was able to dig through and get some new contact information for a good couple handfuls of the people that that call did not even reach. So that's something to consider for your chapter is, are you having issues contacting people because numbers are disconnected, or does it seem like they're never getting back to you because maybe it is disconnected, you just don't know? That can be a helpful tool. And anytime we include emails with the people and their phone numbers that we use for the robocalls, it'll actually send emails to those people that we provided email addresses for as well, along with the robocall saying, this is the script, this is from Wizard Phone, yada, yada, and gives you the same information into the email. So it's just kind of a useful tool that covers a lot of bases and doesn't really take a high amount of effort on the chapter level or on the president level. So anyways, yeah, thank you guys for your comments about robocalls. Alma-Jean, I think we should try to wrap it up with you. I just have a few more things to say after you talk, so go ahead.
Right. Thank you. One of the most surprising things that ever happened to me on a robocall, the first one, was that the robocall came in with the voice of a prominent politician, someone that was extremely popular. Says, join me for lunch over at such and such a place. And I was so excited, just the fact that I was talking to this individual. Of course I went. In other words, I got tricked. And I've been going ever since. The robocalls doesn't have to be done by you. You may consider having someone else do that robocall for you that someone would be excited about. They may not even, who are you? You know, the other thing was the very first meeting I attended, someone tricked me. They invited me to lunch. They didn't tell me I was going to go to a meeting. They didn't make it complicated. They didn't do all that type of planning. They said, come on, let's go to lunch. And when I got in there, it was a RPEC lunch. And they happened to have a speaker that was speaking on something dear to my heart that I really needed. And I was so impressed. And so I kept coming and I kept coming. And look where I am now, still working on behalf of RPEC. And the last thing I want to say to you is we need a mechanism to make sure that the benefits and the advantages that we provide to our members are up to our standards. We need to know that these individuals and companies actually provide the discounts with the quality of what they say they do. And we need to have a means of doing that, because that can come back to haunt you. Those members will come back and say, oh, it wasn't all that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alma-Jean. I think we do have to set our expectations high so that we can be the organization that we're fighting to be in, to be able to fight the most effectively for our members. So you made a lot of very good points there, Alma-Jean, and so I really appreciate that. We can bring people in by just offering a good gesture, you know, invite them to lunch. I think that's an amazing idea. It's very simple, and you know, it takes all the pressure away of them going out to that very first time of meeting people, because there isn't the pressure there. You're just inviting them to lunch. So that's great. That's very valuable. Thank you, Alma-Jean. Okay, so just to wrap up, thank you guys all for your time. These are some of the more future goals, things that are going to be being worked on in the future. So one of my long-term goals is to be working on reinstating and rebuilding chapters. And I know that I'm sure there's plenty of people in leadership in other chapters, or people maybe that were part of other chapters that no longer exist, that would be more than happy to contribute to the effort of, okay, there we go, contributing to the effort of rebuilding chapters and trying to grow the organization, make its outreach spread as wide as it used to be as far as chapter location. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. Another thing is that RPEC survey that we discussed a little bit in this presentation that is supposed to be being distributed in February of next year. So I'm looking forward to getting that data collected and seeing what we can do with it. And then last but not least is something to start considering for your individual chapters is a chapter membership plan. I saw some of the other recruitment plans and things that were done roughly like 7 years ago. And there's a lot of valuable information in there. And I think with that, we can tailor that to individual chapters and kind of have like a guide on membership and maybe a history on how membership has worked for each chapter, things like that. So I'm going to leave those ideas with you guys to start considering for future discussions. Lori, go ahead.
So just before we wrap up, I'd like to share 2 little tidbits. Do you want me to do that now?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
absolutely.
sure. Well, I just want to say that these calls are just, it's so inspiring to hear the excellent work that you're doing across the state in your chapters and in your districts. And, you know, please know that we take good notes, and, you know, we will be this is Jacob's area of responsibility, and so he'll be 100% on membership. And so please feel free to reach out to him directly if you have more ideas that come to mind after our meeting concludes today. We do hold the leadership calls every month. And so I do want to make note that the executive board meeting will be held in November on the 18th, which is the date that we had scheduled for our next leadership call. We are moving the call to Monday, the 21st. So if you could please make a note on your calendars, it will be reflected in the council calendar. So Monday, November 21st, from 1 to 2 o'clock, approximately 1 to 2:30 will be our leadership call. So if you can make note of that. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is, I hope that you'll join me in acknowledging Jacob for a job well done. I marvel that he has only been with us a month and maybe 5 days or 4 days, something like that. So we're excited to have him on board and to have his wonderful ideas. So join me in acknowledging him for his first leadership call.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you guys so much. I feel very welcome, and I'm committed to making a significant positive change in all of your lives from RPEC. I want to help contribute to that and be a part of that fight that you guys have been a part of. So thank you for the opportunity.
My last point of privilege is that I made a mistake this morning. I was leading a meeting and I forgot to tell everyone in that meeting that today is actually Emmett's birthday. So for those of you that have worked with Emmett, and all of you have, please, if you have a minute, shoot him an email or something. It's his actual birthday today. And so we gave him a celebration this morning at the office, and I'm sure he'd love to hear from some of you. It's not often that our birthdays fall during the work week. And so I thought I would just mention that. So I know it's a deviation from what we're talking about today, but he was your membership coordinator. And so if you want to remember him on his birthday, today's the day to do it.
I've
So-
already learned a lot from Emmett for membership. He's taught me a lot in a very short amount of time. And so definitely express your appreciations to him, because I do have him to thank for where I'm starting out in membership. So thank you guys again for everybody who spoke up, for all those who participated, and a special thanks to Colleen for being willing to have some discussions with me beforehand and to kind of speak to some of the things that she talked about with me. So yeah, thank you all. And Katrina.
There's one more hand raised.
I just wanted to say, we got to celebrate Alyssa's birthday at convention. Now we
Oh,
get to
that's
celebrate
right.
Emmett's birthday on the call. Hooray!
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Thank you, Katrina. We did. That was really fun. We got to do that at convention. So yes, and it's wonderful when we can share our birthdays with each other. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Katrina. All right, everyone. Yeah, once again, feel free to reach out to me if you have ideas or questions, and really appreciate your time and everything that you had to say. And I look forward to doing this next month.
It's a good meeting.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank
Everybody,
you,
you take care.
everyone. Thanks for the great contribution today.